So in all of our work with an incredible number of websites, we have found that there are 4 things that are essential to a high converting website. And those 4 things are:
Join us for Impact Live 2024 in Hartford, Connecticut this October 14th through the 16th. Over 3 days, business owners, CEOs, and marketing and sales leaders will learn proven strategies to drive business growth. Attend expert-led sessions on marketing, sales, leadership, and AI, and get a chance to network with industry pros just like yourself. Discover how companies like yours are dominating their markets. Secure your spot at impactplus.com/impact-5. And for all of our Endless Customers listeners, we have an exclusive discount code that'll save you $100. So when you're on the checkout page, just enter the code ECPOD100 in all caps for $100 off. We'll see you there at Impact Live 2024 up in Hartford, October 14th through the 16th.
Welcome back to Endless Customers, the show that teaches you how to win trust and earn more business in this age of AI. I'm Alex Winter, your host, and today we are joined by Mary Brown, who's a lead web strategist here at Impact. Mary, welcome back.
Hey, Alex. Always happy to be here.
Happy to have you here. It's good to see you. It's been a while. It's been a minute.
It's been a while, but I'm so happy you invited me back.
Yes. Well, we're talking about website stuff today, which is a very important topic for a lot of business owners, a lot of businesses out there. It seems like a fundamental thing that everyone knows they need, but they don't always do it right, or they might not know some of the things that they need to know, or whatever the case may be. So we have you on the show to help enlighten these people, to help bring some knowledge, because you're an expert in this and you've been doing this for quite some time now.
Yeah, we don't need to get into how long, because we don't need to date me exactly. But in all of the work that I've done and with my phenomenal colleagues here at Impact, I don't know, we should get a number of how many websites we've done, because I bet it would be astounding. But we have found that there are 4 main elements to a website that make it the right website, that make it your best salesperson. And I'm so excited to talk about that with you today.
Yeah, I am too. I have here in the notes the 4 essential elements. And I was curious before the show what these are, because I feel like I think I know what these are, but I'm not a web expert. I'm more of a video and creative expert overall. So let's get right into the 4 essential pieces that we need.
Let's do it. So the first one, Alex, to you and I, this one might seem obvious because we know they ask you answer, and this is a tenet of they ask you answer, but pricing is the first one that we want to talk about on a website. We know you've got to have pricing on a website.
We know this.
Yeah.
We talk about this all the time.
Yeah.
It's almost like common sense to us, but I feel like for people that might be watching and listening, they may not feel that way. Or we've heard a lot too that companies don't want to share price because they don't want to give away their competitive advantage, or they want their sales folks to be able to talk to people and leave it open-ended. And we know that that's not very they ask you answer, is it?
Yes, because sharing your pricing is about transparency, and transparency builds trust, and trust is, of course, the proponent of business, right? That is the currency of business. But one of the things that I hear all the time when it comes to pricing is we can't share pricing because it's too variable, right? Ours is very unique. It's very special. We have to, it depends on this and it depends on that. And the thing about that is you should tell everyone that, right? You can still talk about pricing without a price. You can say, here are all the factors that make our pricing go up and down. Here are some ranges that we can give you, because by saying that, by simply saying our pricing is variable, and here's why it is variable, and here's what you can expect, you are being transparent. Right. Because the alternative that we see sometimes is that people will just have nothing. And that freaks people out, right? Because they think they've got nothing, you've got something to hide, because that's the number one thing people are really, really looking about. That's what it comes down to, right? Anytime you make a purchase.
It feels a little fishy. It's like you have to talk to somebody in order to get the pricing. Or the other thought that I tend to have is like, if the price isn't on here, it means it's really expensive and I probably can't afford it.
Yes. And how frustrating is it when it says, call for a quote or something? You're like, I'm here.
It's the worst.
Tell me.
Pick up the computer and just Hulk slam it. Yeah, I hate that.
Because whether you're buying a couch or a pizza, you need to know how much it costs.
Yeah.
So, throw it out there.
Yes.
I know another objection that we hear a lot is that, like you said, people don't want to scare their potential customers off.
Sure.
Right? They'll say, we need to get our sales team in here because our sales team is amazing and they can do all this convincing and explain. If your price could potentially scare people off, that's good. Believe it or not, scaring the wrong people off is a good thing, right? We talk about qualification all the time. And, if your price might be $20,000 out of someone's range, tell them that, because you don't want to deal with those people either, right? If they can't afford you, don't waste your salespeople's time.
Right.
So put that right on your website so that people who shouldn't have any business talking to your sales team can disqualify themselves and, save everyone time.
Yeah, no, that makes so much sense. And I think too, it's a respect thing. If you're building trust and you're trying to be transparent, you should also be respectful of not just your time, but other people's time. So it's better to disqualify and know up front where you stand versus trying to have your sales team talk to a potential lead that's never going to convert and waste all this time and money and effort to eventually get to the same place.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So that is why pricing is number one.
All right. So what other essential pieces do we need to talk about for conversions on your website?
So number two is our learning center.
Okay.
So I want to be very clear about this. A learning center and a blog, not the same.
No, they are not. And if you don't know that, everybody watching and listening, we did an episode on this recently talking about exactly that your blog and your website, your blog and your learning center are not the same thing. Yes.
And I want to be very clear that your website does need a blog, right? Your blog is a feed of posts that you are publishing. Everybody needs to have a blog. There's a difference with a blog and a learning center though. And your learning center is a one-stop shop for all of the top resources that are going to help someone along in their buyer's journey, right?
Yeah.
Everything they could possibly want. That doesn't just include blog posts, right? That might include podcast episodes. That might include webinars. It might include white papers. It might include other kind of gated offers that are really, really critical to this buyer's journey. So by building this resource hub that is searchable, filterable, you're allowing people to have complete control over what they're looking for and when, and it's any type of resource imaginable. So that's why have a blog, need a blog, but also have this learning center that is that true main hub.
I love that. Yeah, that's definitely a critical piece. And it's also fun. You don't just have to write written articles, and written articles are great, but I'm a video expert. So for me, if the choice was to read an article or watch a video, I'm obviously going to watch the video because that's just how I like to learn and absorb information, right? So having these different pieces of content, whether it's video, written, whatever it is, an ebook, doesn't matter. It just helps people meet them where they are so that they can digest information the way that they want to. And it just gives you a better chance to build trust and ultimately have a good conversation with a potential.
I'm so glad you mentioned learning styles because that is a huge benefit of having this learning center is, so some blogs are searchable, filterable by topic, right? But a learning center, you can have multiple groups of filtering. So one of the ways people sometimes like to filter is by persona, right? So if I'm an IT person versus my HR director, who might both come to the website, we have different interests. We have different things that we care about. By filtering by persona, you can allow them to see stuff that's tailored to them. Same with learning style. If you have a filter group for content types, so video, webinar, podcast, etc., then if I'm an IT person who loves video, I can filter for both, right?
Right.
So that it gives you that extra control over how I learn, how I like to learn, the way a blog simply can't.
Yeah, and I feel like for end users too, the perception that it builds is like these people are trying to meet me where I am. These people are clearly putting an effort into creating content, and I think it just adds to that persona of your business that like you're professional. You're trying to give people all the information that you possibly can to help build trust so that they can make the best buying decision possible.
Yeah, and I have to say, Alex, that that won't make you special pretty soon because everything is so on demand now that when it comes to creating that on demand experience will just be the norm. So if you don't have it at a minimum, then you will be left behind.
That's a great point. No, that's a great point because I feel like a few years ago, 5 years ago, this was a differentiator, and I feel like now it's becoming more and more like you have to do this because if you don't, you're going to get left behind.
Exactly.
It's common ground now. Like everyone, it's like table stakes at this point. Yeah.
So that's our number 2.
Okay, number 2. What's number 3? What else are we going to be thinking about?
Our number 3 is our fit section. So every website should have a who's a good fit, who's a bad fit section. And I know some of you can't see Alex's face, so it was kind of a thoughtful, I can see where people might object to this. again, we're talking about disqualification, right? So this is going to freak people out because we're actually going to say who's a good fit to work with us and who is not a good fit to work with us.
And the reason why I made that face is because I've had this conversation ad nauseum a lot of times. And it's just fascinating when you have this conversation, how every time there's always a different reaction or a different opinion about what's right and wrong. But ultimately we know, and what we teach here at Impact, you need to be transparent with all this stuff. You have to be, because your end users are going to find out one way or another. And if they find out not through you, it's going to weaken that trust, and it's going to make them want to go somewhere else and click away and ultimately not engage with your services or with your website or with whatever you have to offer.
Yeah, you are exactly right. And the thing about qualification and allowing people to disqualify themselves too is that it's disruptive, right? Because not everyone is doing it, and we have to be disruptive right now. There's so much content out there, and there is so much noise, and everyone, these days seems to have a good idea of what a smart homepage story might be. But if you're not being disruptive in this way and saying, you might not be right for us, and that's okay, then again, you're not going to break through that noise of everyone else's homepage, standard homepage, and how things are looking. So you need to do that to break through. And then also, as you're saying, when you do, it's a gesture of goodwill, and you're going to build that trust. And you can even say, we understand that we're not a good fit for everyone. And here are some other things you can look at if you find you're not a fit. So we're not just saying, you're not going to be rude about it and be like, get out of here. We don't want to talk to you. Don't recommend that. I never said that. Don't do that. But you can point people in the right direction for something that might be better for them.
It's so true. It is. And it when you talk about the psychology of buying and selling for salespeople, the more that you apply pressure, the more it pushes people away. So the less interested you are, if you're not pushing it and just going like, hey, we might not be a good fit for you, and that's totally okay, but I still want to make sure that we're helping you find what you need to look for. So if we can refer another company or we can point you in the right direction, that almost ends up changing the whole dynamic, where people are like, well, wait a second, they're not trying to hard sell me. Now I actually want to work with these people.
Yes.
And it's really interesting how self-selection and all that plays into the psychology around this specific thing.
Yeah. I mean, think about just the rest of your life. Haven't you ever had someone give you some hard honesty, but after they did, you were grateful for it? Because
at first you're pissed though. You're like, what the heck was that?
Yeah.
Why would you say that?
Yeah.
But then you reflect and you you get to digest it a little bit, the information. And then you're like, oh, wait a second.
I'm so glad I found that out. So at least I could go in a better direction and not waste my time. Right?
Totally.
Do that with your website.
It's not always easy, but it really does make the changes that are going to exponentially help you grow as a professional, but also help your business and just on multiple levels. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. All right. So what's the next one?
Last, but certainly not
I feel
least.
like we need like a drum roll.
The call to action.
Yeah, CTAs.
Okay, I have ranted on this podcast before about calls to action. And for those, this is a plug for the YouTube channel as well, because you'll get to see my insane gesturing and facial expressions that are just out of control. And you should never put them on social media again. But it is truly amazing. You have to have a call to action. This is basically what I said last time. 1, you need CTAs. 2, you need to have clear and compelling CTAs. Period.
Yeah.
End of story. You can't fight me on this. I dare you. Let's do a challenge. Try to fight me on this, because you can't. But you must have them, and they must be clear and straightforward, right?
Yeah.
There can't be a question as to what you're asking people to do, right?
No.
Can't be vague.
Nope.
If you want people to book a demo, say that. Some people will say things like, talk to us. Sure, we can try it. I'm a data scientist, right? I'll let you test it. But saying talk to us versus, talk to a sales expert, something that's more specific, is more clear, more compelling, because you're setting that expectation of exactly what is going to happen.
Right.
And when people know what's going to happen, they're more likely to do it, right?
Definitely. Okay. Well, and sometimes if you leave it open-ended, I know you're trying, sometimes the idea is to keep it conversational. So talk to us. Let's not make it too formal or too scary. But then for the end user, it's talk to you how? Is that an email? Is that a phone call? Is that how do I reach out to you? So you do need to get specific with the direction to help point people the way you want them to go.
Exactly. And it
So
has
true.
to be actionable. That's the next thing. So I
Yeah.
know it's in CTA, like people should know. it's got to be actionable. But specifically, start with a verb. They need to start with a verb. I have seen calls to action that will be for, 10 questions to ask your next accountant. Huh?
Yeah.
That's not, the A is in CTA. You got to do it. You got to tell people what to do. So it might be an awesome resource. It might be a phenomenal transitional call to action. But if you're not saying download the guide, if you're not telling people what to do, if it's not actionable, then you need to update that immediately.
Right. And that's like that could be a valuable piece of information for your users that they're not going to download because they don't know that they should because of whatever reason. So it's important to give them that direction. It totally is.
Yes. And also to that end, the other part of calls to action is you need to offer different kinds of call to action, right? So we talk about how our primary call to action, that direct call to action, is the marriage proposal, right? It's serious. I'm talking to sales.
Yeah.
But we also want to have the little cup of coffee too, right? I'm not ready to give you my time with sales yet, but I'm interested. Maybe I'll give you my email. So we want to have variable calls to action there.
Yeah. Well, you got to go on a few dates before you get married.
Yes. I mean, some people will rush right in. Some
Yeah.
people will see that book now and they're going to go for it. But
That's true.
a lot of people aren't, and it's good to get them into your marketing funnel, right? So that you can nurture them. And some people like the longer play, like you're saying, and at least if you get them into your CRM, you can keep the conversation going and hopefully get them down the line.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
I do want to say that when it comes to calls to action, you're not going to get your strategy right on day one. You're just not. It's not going to be perfect. This is something you should be testing and iterating all the time. I do actually have people say, I tested the thing, I'm done, right? And no, you're not done. A website is never done. I know some people hear that and they're like, oh God. But test multiple times. Try one. You might do a test and it is negative and you
Right.
get a negative result. Keep
Right.
trying. Find the thing that really is clear and compelling and gets people to meet with you.
Yeah. No, and testing is huge. And I think people forget, that you get the cringe when you say like your website's a living, breathing thing, like it's never done. People instantly cringe because they're like, oh my God, that means more money and I'm always going to be working on this thing. But you have to look at it like your business. A website is an extension of your business. So is your business just going to stay the same indefinitely? Probably not. You're going to have to adapt and change, and your website's going to have to do the same thing. So I feel like it's really shifting the mindset for business owners and people out there that like your website has to grow and change with your business, and you need to test. You're not going to get it right the first time. And this plays into the overarching like psychology as a business owner of like, you may think you know what your end user wants, but what you think it is and what it actually is may not line up. So you have to get into the weeds of it to see what the response is going to be and learn from that response. Because ultimately, it's not what you want; it's what your end users want and need. That's what you're servicing, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
Alex, speak on it. You're saying everything. And
No, I love it. This is important because I feel like we talk about this ad nauseum with a lot of businesses. They're like, I just spent 30, 40, 50 grand rebuilding and redoing my entire website, and I just want to be done with it. And that's technically not the right approach. And
No.
even though you spent a lot of money and you made that investment, if you think about it that way, you're never going to get that return on the investment you made.
yes, yes, I'm saying this about my profession and what I do here, but there's a lot of educated guessing that's happening.
Sure.
It's very well educated guessing. We can be smart. We can know a lot of great things. But until we use data and until we're being data scientists about this and we're collecting what's actually happening and making optimizations based on that data, we're just kind of throwing spaghetti at the wall to see what
See
works.
what's going to stick. Yeah.
And it's like that with your entire website. All of the things that we have just talked about. So pricing, learning center, everything, you should test things within that. So this can be a whole other episode. But really, your learning center filters I was talking about, test those, change those.
Right.
Your pricing strategy on your pricing page, test that, change that. All of this. We're giving you these 4 really fundamental pieces you need to have. But you also need to make sure that you are really understanding how these things are performing and you're iterating on them all the time.
Absolutely. So for people listening and watching, where should these 4 different essential pieces live on their website?
Yes. So your pricing should be in your navigation. There are instances, and I know there's always someone listening who's like, well, I have 87 million different products. Yeah. Okay. You can have pricing on your product pages sometimes as well.
Right.
So that argument can be made, but generally
speaking, we'll keep it high level.
Yes. I've got the caveats in my head always, Alex.
Well, and there's always exceptions. There are, and every
Exactly.
business it has different service lines and industries, and it's so I get that. But just generally speaking,
Yes. We want to have pricing in our main navigation. We want to have our learning center in our main navigation as well.
okay.
And that primary call to action should be in our main navigation. I know, crazy, right?
Crazy.
These things are all so important. I know that we've got this stuff in our main nav, and especially when our nav should be something that follows people. We call it a sticky nav, right? So that when they're scrolling down a page, they go up, it reappears. We want that to be available to everyone every time because these things are all critical pieces of the buyer's journey.
Yeah, absolutely. And for the user experience, you need to have that. Yeah.
Yeah, don't make people work, right?
Mm-hmm.
When we create friction, we create frustration. And when we create frustration, people get the F out of there,
Yeah,
right?
people peace out. I do.
Yeah.
If I get frustrated, I'm looking for something I can't find it on whatever link or website I clicked on. I'm out and I'm back to Google or whatever search platform to find the next whichever one's going to give me what I need when I need it.
Exactly.
That's bottom line.
So that's why this stuff needs to be right up front, easy for people to find, easy to navigate so that they can get exactly what they want when they want it.
Yeah. So you help a lot of companies implement this, and you build a lot of websites, like you said earlier. We're going to have to get a tally on the amount.
Yes.
It's more than we can count, that's for sure.
Yes.
But do you have any examples or something you could share with us where people started to implement this, or a business started to implement these different essential pieces, and it's really helped change or shift the way that they do business?
Yeah, so I have had people who have gone, I think one of the most remarkable changes is usually with pricing. As soon as they add pricing, they immediately see that as the most clicked element on their website.
How ironic is
Isn't,
that?
I know, isn't that crazy? But, and it will be across the board too. Doesn't matter your industry, doesn't matter what the pricing is, if you've got an exact number, if you've got a range or anything. But like we're saying, it's the number one most asked question about what you're doing. I guarantee you add that to your website, it's going to be in your top 3 probably most clicked elements on your site.
Wow. Well, you heard it here first, folks. So make sure you get pricing on your website. You definitely need it. Any closing thoughts for everyone out there as we wrap up this episode?
Like we said, these are really important fundamental things that we have seen across all of the clients that we've done, across all kinds of different industries, B2B, B2C, whatever it is. But best practices are test practices. So do it, test it, get the data, come back and tell me if I was wrong, because I love hearing about that with you. But I guarantee you, this stuff is going to help. It's going to help.
It's definitely going to help. And Mary, again, you're an expert in this. So if people have questions, we'll put all your info in the show notes so that they can reach out to you and pick your brain. And also make sure to drop comments, or if you have questions, we're here. We want to talk about this stuff. We want to answer your most pointed questions. So let us know if you have any website stuff that we can discuss on the show. And with that, Mary, thank you for your time. Thanks for being here with us today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Awesome. Well, this is Endless Customers, and I'm your host, Alex Winter. We'll see you on the next episode.